Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now today's video a little bit different than what we typically cover here on Outer Limitless, yet important at the same time. For me, the safety and security that I have at my house comes twofold. Of course, there's the general safety and security, but then there's the safety and security of my assets, all the things that I've done to work hard for what I have and really leave myself and my family in a position to succeed. And with that, there are some things that I have identified as outstanding liabilities that I just have not had the opportunity to address. But today fixes some of those problems. Now let me bring you into this just a little bit. When it comes down to owning a home, you have a number of different utilities. And when it comes down to the utilities, you have different things that can go wrong. And when it comes to water being fed into your home or the potential to have groundwater that might seep in, you may want a way to detect that before it becomes a real significant problem. And so today what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at some sensors from the company Xsense. Now they have reached out to me a couple of times in the past. I had an opportunity in the past to look at some of their smoke detectors. Now unfortunately, that is one of those things when it comes to the sort of health and safety side of things. I do have to listen to my wife. My wife wasn't happy with the performance that she was seeing in the units, and she actually didn't allow me to install them throughout my house, which I understand that. I totally get it. This is a little bit different. This is not health and safety. Rather, this is more of like a liability detection. My point being the Xsense smart water leak sensors with a base station. This is an early warning detection system that I'm going to be able to take these sensors, put them in some very strategic locations. So if I have a leak, if I have water that's coming into my home, this will sense it, it will alert me to it, and hopefully fast enough that I can really make an adjustment before it becomes a major issue. And so this is going to be a little bit detailed. I'm going to go through these, I'm going to break them out of the box, figure out what it means for me, figure out where I'm going to put these around, how I'm going to get them set up, and what it means to monitor these. And so with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Xsense who did provide these for review. And so for me, something like early warning and monitoring is key. The last thing I want to find out is that I was really not in a place or a position to find out that I have a problem, and then while it causes more damage or more of an issue than I'm able to address if I just knew it in the first place. And so when you really look at the utilities in my house and the locations where the utilities are, they're a little bit challenging. Like for example, my water meter. It's in a location where I have a difficult time seeing what's going on. It's behind a panel. It's in a non-convenient location. And so having something like one of these sensors and the ability to monitor it, well, that's going to be absolutely critical. And then my water heater, again, in the basement, and it's right behind my studio space. So the unfortunate thing is if I had a problem with my water heater, well, it's one thing for a few drips, it's another for a catastrophic failure. And if it was to get to the point where I was going to have a major failure, it would wipe out my ability to even run my channel effectively, never mind the financial losses that I would have from making the correction. So ultimately, if I have something like here, the Xsense sensors and the ability to monitor that, it definitely gives me a peace of mind. And so as we get into this, we have a base station and 3 sort of monitoring sensors. And these kits are very tight and tidy and compact. You'll notice as we look at this, not overly large sized anything. Here we have the user's manual, we have the 3 sensors, and we have the base station, which the base station, again, very small. It's not going to take up a huge amount of room, and you can locate this in a place where you think it makes the most sense and you actually be able to hear if there was something going on. The sensors themselves, again, very small. These are very, very small. They'll fit in a certain location with ease. You'll notice that they do have the actual the sensors themselves, but these little probes that stick down and can really sense the water at a very shallow level. In my opinion, that's going to be absolutely key. And so you do end up with the 3 of these, and you also end up with a cable. So your little USB brick, as well as a USB, and this is a micro USB cable. But other than that, fairly straightforward coming out of the packaging. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read up on all of this, so before I can even set these up in a location, I kind of need to figure out my game plan and really determine exactly what I'm going to do. So that's my next step. And so next for me, there are a few steps that I need to take. So, I am leveraging the user's manual here, so this is not the most straightforward and intuitive. It takes a little bit of setup to get it right. Now keep in mind that the base is powered via that sort of USB and the micro USB adapter. So I just have a cable here that I'm going to plug this in. So this should allow it to work, and you'll see here that does start blinking. Now these do have a battery built into the inside of them, and as I take a look through this, these do say the battery life is approximately 3 years, and you do have the ability, if you undo these screws here, to replace the battery. So 3-year battery life on these sensors, which is pretty good, I would say. Now that is something that of course you're gonna have to remember. If you set these and forget them, well, that's not gonna give you the benefits that you were hoping for. Now in terms of my setup, you do have, again, the sensors on the bottom, but you also have sensors on the top. So if you have something that you think is gonna start a drip, you could leverage that as well. So this really does give you the ability to sense water on the floor, or if there's something dripping off of pipes. So that will go into my setup considerations. Now again, as I mentioned, this does leverage the XSense Home Security app. So as I get this installed, pretty straightforward. And once loaded in, you'll notice it does require you to make an account. And so now with the app loaded and my account created, very straightforward, not a lot to it. And this will now give me the ability to monitor this remotely, which is definitely cool. And so the way this system works, the base station ends up sitting on your Wi-Fi network. That allows it to communicate. And then the sensors are basically communicating with the base station, and then you have some Bluetooth capability. But right now, the first thing is in the app, I need to add the base station. So I'm going to add a base station, and this is the base station in the SBS50 model line. It has a QR code, so I'm going to allow it this time to scan. And as I flip the unit around, you'll see on the bottom there is a QR code. So this says scan QR code. Very simple. It is finding it. Name, base station, home, create a new home. Create a new room and support. Please tap create new room to add one if your room on the list does not exist. Well, this doesn't really matter to me. The base station is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm just going to call it office for now and keep it down here for the example and for the time being. Pretty easy. Enter a name for your home. Outer Limitless. Well, that's pretty straightforward. Okay, saved successfully. So now I have a base station in my home, Outer Limitless, and in my room, office. Turn on the base station and press and hold the button on the base station for 5 seconds until the LED indicator flashes yellow, which it already is. Immediately tap operation confirmed before the LED goes off, and then press next. So let's try this again. So just for the sake of it, it's going to long press here on the back. There is a button. Let's see what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that has now started blinking. Tap operation confirmed and next before the light goes out. So, okay. I'm going to allow this to determine the relative position of the device. I don't want to allow that. Don't allow it. I don't need any GPS locations on this device. XSense needs access location to discover devices nearby. For real? I feel like now I'm on the China map. Allow nearby devices. Sure. So this is demonstrating my wireless node here. So now that I've enabled this, I'm not going to show this on camera. I'm going into my actual router. I'm entering my password. So this is getting me network access, which means I'm giving network access to China.
Connecting to Wi-Fi.
And that is seemingly working. So again, remember I said that there are some audible commands that you may want to hear.
Wi-Fi connected.
Ooh, fancy. So that looks like it's all working. Connecting the device to the cloud server, which is going to allow the notifications to my phone. So this is all good. So when enabled, a triggered alarm can be silenced by pressing the button on the base station, which is the button on the back. When disabled, a triggered alarm cannot be silenced by pressing the button on the base station. You can only silence the alarm via the app or disconnecting the power supply to the base station. This will only temporarily silence the alarm without making any changes to the system settings. The alarm is able to be triggered again afterwards as programmed. So cool. Okay, so now save and moving forward. Now that does have my sensor enabled. You'll notice at this point it has turned blue. And as you look at my device here under Outer Limitless, you can see now that I have a base station online and monitoring my rooms. It says office. So far, so good. Everything very easy to get established. So now I'm going to start adding the sensors. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the plus. And on here, I'm going to add a water leak sensor. Now I can select the room. Now this is not going to go in the office. Rather, I'm going to create a new room. And I'm actually going to call this room in a new location. I'm going to name this water heater, because this is going to go beneath my water heater. And I want to make sure that if I have a leak on the water heater, that I know it's there. So this one's going to be called water heater. Now the first sensor here, as I get into this, press the button twice quickly, and then when the LED indicator flashes blue, tap next. So 1, 2, and I'm looking for the LED indicator, which it is flashing.
Ready to add a device.
Oh, there we go.
Device added.
All right. So that's good. So now go to installation and setup. So it's talking about all the different setup locations, giving me examples. Let's see, basement, sump pump, water heaters, water softener. So just dropping it literally beside the water heater, not dropping it, but placing it directly beside the water heater within proximity. Now that will leverage, you can see here, the sensors on the bottom for any water that starts to accumulate on the ground. Now I can look at how the fill is and see if I can anticipate capturing anything that actually hits on the top, so it might serve dual purpose. So next here it says place it on a flat surface. You don't want to lay it sideways or anything else like that. Installation finished. So at this point I can see this does have perfect signal. Looks to be exactly how I need it. Now I'm going to hit the settings button here. There's all kinds of information, so I can do device test. So to test the water leak sensor, tap the device test button. It will beep 3 times. Well, I'm not really looking forward to just pressing the button and hearing it. Rather, what I'd prefer to do is actually get the sensors wet to see how they work. Which at this point I have placed the sensor in the middle of this bowl. The reason why I chose this bowl, it's completely flat on the bottom, which will simulate sitting on the floor. So what I'm trying to do at this point is really simulate some sort of a leak. Now I'm going to fill this slowly and we will see what happens. I'm curious if I don't pour water all over my phone, what's going to happen between the base station, between my phone notifications, and kind of how this all plays out. So how much water will it take to actually trigger this? Which there you can see, barely coat. Oh.
Alarm off.
That literally took like nothing. That was a tiny amount. So that's actually a good sign, because in the very beginning, you'll notice just enough on the bottom that if there was a problem starting to develop, I certainly would have figured that out. So I would say so far, very effective. And to be completely honest, I'm actually really impressed at how well that worked. Now I've since dried this off, kind of cleaned out the bottom of the bowl. Hopefully this is dry enough to continue the test without setting it off again, which I would suspect. So taking a look here, let's see. Water leak sensor triggered. So you can see the 3 different statuses. Water leak sensor triggered, device silenced, and then no more water leak. So it's no longer detecting it, and that's because I've since dried everything off. And if I look even further at this, if I back out a little bit, let's see what happens. I do want to see if I can tell which device, and specifically I'd love to know if it calls it out. It specifically said, sensor in water heater has detected a water leak. Your immediate attention is needed. So it worked very well. It was literally exactly what I would have hoped. So next the question is going to be how much water would drip on the top to trigger this. Now I'm literally just going to drip my finger in here and let one drip, if I can get it to come off, and hit. Just trying to get the slightest amount, and there it goes.
Alarm off.
And that's all it took. A single drop, which again, as we take a look at this, does say water leak sensor in water heater has triggered. So very, very good, very effective. And I would say this does exactly what I need it to do. And so now getting the X-Sense sensors into place, you can see I do have these perfectly located alongside my water heater. Got it down on the ground. Very simple and nice, and located exactly where it needs to be and fairly close in proximity to the base unit. And then you can see my water meter location. Again, very difficult. It does end up being behind a panel, so it's not something that I can watch or really keep my eyes on. So having a sensor in an appropriate location is definitely going to come into play. And so all in all, I do have to say, I think these devices are pretty cool. They're simple. They actually have a great utility purpose. They're a monitoring device and an early warning device if you think you may have areas that are sensitive, areas that may be prone to water damage. This would definitely come into play. So again, going back to the very beginning, my original premise, this is something that for me, I'm just starting to think more and more about how I can protect my assets, and having something like this that's an early warning and early detection device could definitely come into play. So all in all, very cool. I would like to say thank you again to the people at Xsense who did provide these for review. And for the rest of you, if you like this content, do me a favor, take a look at my Outer Limitless 2 channel, which is more on the tactical and firearm side of things. At this point, that channel is growing quickly. I have a ton of videos up there. So if you like what you see here on Outer Limitless, do me a favor and check me out on Outer Limitless 2. So all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.